This is Hawaii's capital, where lawmakers toil away on how to spend billions of dollars of taxpayer money. And they had a lot of it this year to spend, $10 billion to be exact. But now it's all gone, vanished, kaput, poof. So where did all the money go? And did lawmakers really spend it all? And how can we get more of that money back in your pocket? In this video, we're going to examine what happened to Hawaii's budget surplus. Now first, where did the surplus come from? Every year, state experts try to calculate how much money they'll get from taxpayers and how much they want to spend. Any leftover money is called the surplus. This year, the surplus was projected to be about $2 billion, or $10 billion by the time you get to fiscal 2028. And that would be enough money to give every taxpayer $10,000. Sounds pretty good, right? I mean, how would you like it if someone told you that you're going to have too much money for a long time? In fact, the numbers were so high that Hawaii's newly elected Governor Josh Green actually proposed big tax cuts equal to about $300 million every year for years going forward. And that would have seen more money going back to the people, back to you.
It will provide just over $300 million in tax relief annually to the people who need it the most.
So, what happened? In March, economic forecasts started to look more grim. All those good feelings about a booming economy started to turn sour, so the state lowered their projection to $7 billion. In other words, the experts said that we're probably going to collect fewer tax dollars, but we'll still have a $7 billion surplus by 2028. So, okay, that's still pretty good, and it's still good enough to give a big tax break. But then, lawmakers started to write the budget. Imagine you're a lawmaker and your experts just told you that you're going to have a lot of extra cash to spend. What are you going to do? Spend it, right? And that's exactly what lawmakers did. Hawaii legislators passed a budget that increased general fund spending by almost 25% to over $11 billion, and that's up from the current $8 billion. And they actually blew the state's legal spending cap while doing that too. That cap, mandated by the state's constitution, can be bypassed only by a 2/3 vote of the legislature. But since Hawaii is virtually a one-party state, that's really easy to do. But there were a few lawmakers who actually objected.
We are exceeding the budget expenditure ceiling by $1,063,767,367. I'm going to say this again. This expenditure ceiling is a constitutionally mandated spending cap that is calculated and based upon the personal income taxes that we are collecting from the hard-working residents of this state. And we are exceeding this cap by over $1 billion.
So good for Representative Albalati for actually pointing that out. But the spending cap aside, what's the problem with spending too much money? I mean, can't we just say happy days are here again and stop being a Debbie Downer about all this? Well, no. I mean, first of all, every dollar that the state spends is money that's taken out of your pocket. Remember that Governor Green wanted to give everyone a big tax break, but lawmakers cut that down because they wanted to spend your money instead. Second, Hawaii's government is spending money at a rate far faster than the state economy is growing, and that's unsustainable. So the government budget might be growing really fast, but that's leaving behind a lot of Hawaii residents whose family budgets aren't growing fast at all. That means our lawmakers might have to raise taxes in the future to maintain that high level of spending. Finally, when our lawmakers spend a lot of money, they're eating away into all those surplus dollars. Remember that $7 billion I mentioned earlier? Well, if the legislature's proposed budget is approved by Governor Green as is, that surplus will vanish. That's because when the budget increases, it doesn't just increase for 1 year, it increases for every year afterward. And that's how you make $7 billion go poof. And where do our legislators want all that money to go? Looking at specific departments, we can see significant budget increases across the board. Standouts include the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism with a whopping 2,659% increase, and the Department of Land and Natural Resources up by 208%. That's huge. Other big increases include the Department of Defense, the Department of Budget and Finance, Department of Health, the University of Hawaii, Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Education. But that's not all. $200 million went to a special pot of money given to the governor to spend as he wishes without any approval needed at all. He just needs to notify the legislature before he spends it, but he doesn't really need to ask anyone for permission. Now, this gift to the governor is something that lawmakers almost never do. I mean, we look back into the history of the state budgets and we've never seen anything like that. So one thing the governor could do is simply veto that pot of money. In the future, Hawaii lawmakers need to curb their spending if we ever hope to see any tax cuts or rebates again. They could also put a tighter limitation on the state's spending cap. Make it a requirement that any spending in excess of the spending cap has to be approved by a vote of the people. They do something similar in Colorado where a vote of the people is needed to increase taxation. That's a good idea too, by the way, because it's saved Colorado residents hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. If Hawaii lawmakers keep blowing the spending cap and blowing up the budget, this will eventually blow up our wallets since we're the ones that have to pay for it all. And that's getting harder to do as Hawaii's cost of living keeps getting higher. Now, if you learned something in this video, please consider dropping a like. It really helps us a lot. And also subscribe to get our updates whenever we post a new video. Thanks so much for watching. Aloha!